All right, let's get to the Big 12 North pod. Let's start with Iowa State. They didn't have to do anything, right? They dropped despite not playing, and it's because a couple of teams behind them, including BYU and A&M, had nice wins. So let's start with the team that won, and it wasn't West Virginia. They did win. We'll have them. K-State, Chris Kleiman, he mentioned after the game, Tim Fitzgerald asked him after the game, is there something going on with you? And he said, yeah, I didn't feel good today. I was dizzy at times. He's had some health issues in the past, but a nice win and just a survival win. But that's all you do is win in advance, and that's what K-State did.
Yeah, look, you knew it was going to be tighter, and Kansas is a 2-5 team that has played, or 2-6 team that has played close in every game. They had a fourth quarter lead in all the games but one, and in that one they had a late third quarter lead and lost it to TCU. So they've led late in the second half in every single game this year, and have only finished 2 of them. And that's really tough to see. But on the other side with Kansas State, that's what good teams do. You have a rivalry game. Maybe you're not hitting on all cylinders. Maybe they've got you figured out a little bit. Well, you just keep pace until the end, and that's what they did. Kansas State never in that game looked like they had an ounce of, oh, dear God, what's happening? How can we let this happen? It was, we'll get our shot. Let's just make sure that we finish it when we get the chance, and they did. That's the difference between Kansas State and Kansas right now.
Yeah, I mean, they took advantage of the Kansas mistakes, and they went and made the plays there at the end, forcing the fumble on Jalen Daniels, going down and kicking a 51-yard field goal. So shout out to, special teams, because you don't really think about it too much until you really need it. And to bang through a 51-yarder was a really big deal for them. So Chris Tennant, shout out to him for knocking that through. And then you go and make the stop that I guess you were referring to a few moments ago, that Kansas had another shot, but they turn it over on downs as Jalen Daniels fumbled on 4th down at around midfield and covered it up, but it was the end of the game. So in closing time, Kansas State flexed their muscles. Got 2 bigs, they forced a fumble. They got the ball back that set up the 51-yard field goal to take the lead, and then got the stop right after that to close it out. So great closing stretch from them. I do worry about Chris Kleiman. Even though he said that this is kind of a recurring thing, clearly it was something that a lot of people picked up on because he was sitting down, which you just never see that with a coach. He's drinking a lot of water, and just obviously something wasn't right. And so good to know that it's nothing more serious. But, yeah, definitely something that hopefully is – it's just that, nothing too serious. But, yeah, a really good win for K-State. They're sitting pretty right now at 7-1 and right there behind the 2 unbeatens in the league. But that was all about closing time, and they closed big. So kudos to them for that.
West Virginia sure needed a win. They are 4-4, and they were able to pick one up. And you wondered about what were they going to do. Well, they showed that they could fight back. It's still a disappointing year. Did not hear from the guys that normally send me an email or a DM or something like that when it comes to West Virginia, but they took care of their business, 3-2 in the conference, and now they get an off week, and then they will play Cincinnati on the road in 2 weeks.
Yeah, all Neil Brown's fans want is a win, and they also would like that to be at home. He got 50% of that right this week, which they can take, although I think I don't know what else he can do the rest of the season to get the fans in his corner, but they needed that one badly. And Arizona needs to go back to the drawing board and see what they can do to build, for the rest of the season, obviously, but try to build a Big 12 champion next year. Keeping Noah Fafita, all those things are important. Like, that's what their focus needs to be in building around him.
By the way, one note on West Virginia, then, Craig, your thoughts. Penn State, they lost to Penn State. They're number 3 in the country. Lost to Pittsburgh. They weren't at the time, but they're in the top 20. Lost to Iowa State, number 11, then lost to Kansas State, who's number 17. So their losses, I I'm not into the quality losses as much as I am quality wins, but they have lost to some pretty good football teams so far. But bottom line is West Virginia fans don't care. They want to see some victories.
Yeah, I mean, the most important thing here is just for West Virginia is that they won. I mean, that's the biggest deal. That's the biggest deal for Neil Brown. No matter who, where, what, when, why, you just need to win. But to go travel cross country, we kind of wondered about that double time zone jump because that's been such a big talking point, especially for the Big Ten teams, of jumping 2 time zones and not having a very good record. You wondered. But then again, I felt like this was a toss-up between 2 pretty mediocre teams, and I don't say that like I think most of the leagues fits that category. I think most of the country fits that category. Your average teams, I think these are a couple of average to below average, and they just kind of hover depending on what part of the season we're talking about. Unfortunately for West Virginia, we're not talking about a part of the year where they're back to 500 right there in that middle ground and have an opportunity to build off of that because of this win, whereas Arizona's sinking. Yeah, I mean, you gave up 200 yards to Tetero and McMillan, but ultimately it didn't affect the outcome. And I think the miraculous thing about this game, or not miraculous, but kind of the amazing thing is just how good both teams were on late downs. I mean, you had West Virginia was 7 of 16 on third down. They were 4 of 4 on fourth down. Arizona was 2 of 2 on fourth down. So combined, the two teams were 6 for 6 on fourth down attempts in this game, which was just kind of a cool little note from this one. But yeah, West Virginia was aggressive early on, going for it on fourth downs, busting out the fake field goal. And I guess the biggest thing was beyond just the clear need for a win and the clear aggressiveness and pulling out all the stops and making stops is Nico Marchiol. I mean, that was the big story. That's the guy they've been clamoring to see for a couple of years now, the young, highly recruited, next big thing at quarterback. And because of your injury situation there, you have an opportunity to put him in and start him this game, and he performed really well. I mean, it wasn't anything super gaudy, but he was really efficient, didn't turn the ball over, and I thought showed some really promising signs, and you got some big contributions for your run game, including a little bit from him in that regard. So nothing fancy, but they did the little things, and they capitalized on just that need to be aggressive, and were able to make just a couple more plays in this one. So that was a big win for them.
All right, we've already really done Kansas and Kansas State. We have just mentioned West Virginia. So who do we have next?
Iowa State.
Iowa State. They did not play.
I said that at the very beginning.
Yeah,
I did mention at the beginning, but let's discuss them because here they are. Another one of those teams in the Big 12 that was probably looked at in the middle of the pack, maybe just below the top 5. And they get a chance to take a break and now play again. So Iowa State, the Cyclones, and BYU, are they headed for a collision course? Whether that collision course, if it happens, is a couple of unbeatens, I don't know. But Iowa State and the Cyclones got a chance to sit back and heal some wounds.
The only thing really preventing it for me is that Iowa State has to play K-State. BYU's detriment is they have a really easy schedule. They don't have but one ranked team on the entire schedule in the regular season, and that was SMU. I don't even know if there's another one on the list the entire year. Now that's where you go, well, the polls are anti-Big 12. Who are you putting in there on their schedule? Because it's not like they played Iowa State and K-State and those teams are getting disrespected. They played all of the middle to lower teams in the Big 12. So that's definitely going to pinch them a little bit when it comes to resume comparisons and why they have to be undefeated in a lot of ways. But Iowa State, they've got that Kansas State game that's still looming, so that'll be a big feather in their cap potentially. So that's why I say they're not on a collision course.
BYU beat the hell out of K-State.
Yeah, you're okay. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, they beat. Yeah. Sorry, I didn't mean to intentionally forget that.
That's right.
But I'm thinking more about like what they have remaining. They don't have anything remaining because of Utah being the big game you thought, and they're not anywhere close to that. So yeah, you're right. The K-State game, absolutely. The SMU win, absolutely. That's what BYU's feathers are in their caps. But they ought to close. My point being, they ought to close undefeated with what's remaining. Iowa State has the question mark as far as K-State goes. But other than that, yes, they are on very much a collision course. I just think K-State could have something to say about it ultimately. But Iowa State's sitting pretty. I mean, they're a really good football team. There's a lot to like about them, and it just depends on who you want to ask as far as if you think they're the number one team in this league or if you think BYU's the number one team in this league. And I think there's great cases for both. Coming back against Texas Tech at home after having a couple weeks to prepare, I think that's a win. So, yeah, I think that they're in good shape and just need to keep doing what they're doing and stay healthy.
I'm about to blow some minds just because I just want to, like, scratch an itch. So you don't want to put Big 12 teams inside the top 25, and maybe your opinion or whoever, maybe they don't earn it or whatever. That also could come back to hurt BYU, K-State, Iowa State, because they're not going to play many teams in the top 25. For example, Iowa State has Texas Tech, KU, Cincinnati, Utah, and then Kansas State. But all the way through the year, they played Iowa. They did beat them. But there's not a lot of opportunities to play top 25 teams.
Well, that's my thing is, like, you can have the argument about, well, Iowa State's ranked too low, BYU's ranked too low, K-State's ranked too low, Colorado should be ranked. That's all well and good, but the problem for the Big 12 is not those guys. It's all the other 12 teams in the league that are nowhere close to being ranked, that are taking up most of your schedule, as opposed to name a Big 10, name an SEC school, and they got 5 of those bad boys automatically on their schedule.
Sometimes, right? And so, and again, it's also the algorithm. You have the algorithm of who you're going to play. Some of these teams were supposed to be ranked. They aren't. What the hell? Just keep winning and take care of your business.